Welcome back to New Day Northwest. If you're like me, thinking about the legal world can be a bit overwhelming, maybe confusing, especially if you're in need of a lawyer. Here with insight is Jonathan Dichter from DUI Heroes law firm. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back.
It is always a pleasure to have you here. Free legal advice. No one can turn that down, right?
I do everything I can to try to help.
Well, you really do help us a lot. So first of all, tell us about DUI Heroes.
So DUI Heroes is a small boutique firm. We focus exclusively on DUI and related defense, so driving related, drug and alcohol related defense. We're based out of Linwood, but we go all around Washington State, all up and down I-5. Been as far east as Walla Walla, as far west as Port Angeles, and all up and down I-5 from top to bottom.
You know Washington law,
yes,
so you've
indeed.
got it covered. And you have thoughts now on what a driver should do if they're ever pulled over.
Yeah, and first thing to be really clear, drinking and driving is just a bad idea. We don't condone it, and nobody should drink and drive. But if you've had a drink and you find yourself getting pulled over, one of the most common questions I get asked is, well, what do I do now? And a lot of times you'll get asked questions by the officers. Have you been drinking? Will you step out of the car? Will you perform voluntary standardized field sobriety tests? Best advice I give for friends, colleagues, etc. is if you've had anything to drink, or if you've been consuming THC or anything you shouldn't have been consuming within the last really like 12 or more hours, and an officer asks you if you've been consuming, first thing you ought to do really is ask to speak to an attorney. They may not give you one at that moment, but the last thing you want to do is start trying to convince the officer that you're okay, because you may not be able to.
Okay, so don't deny it. Just say, I need to talk to an attorney.
Exactly.
Okay.
At some point they may ask you if you're willing to take voluntary standardized field sobriety tests. Key word in that phrase, voluntary. They're not required. And they're not necessarily as easy as the officers might make them seem.
I have often seen some of these tests and thought, wow, that could be really hard to do if somebody has balance issues or what have you. So you're saying to say no to that as well?
Balance issues, back problems, if you're over a certain age, if you're more than 50 pounds overweight based on the normal BMI scale, and a variety of other things, nerves, anything can make these problematic. And even if they're performed under perfect standardized conditions, which they almost never are, at their best, they're accurate and predictable on the best of them about 80-ish% of the time.
Got it.
Which means about 20-ish% of the time, they're wrong.
Okay.
And because they're voluntary, you shouldn't necessarily do them.
Got it.
You're going to be under a heightened amount of stress no matter what. You're not going to be performing your best. The officer's going to demonstrate them to you. And he's demonstrating them 3, 4, 5 times a night. He's been trained to demonstrate them. He's been trained in some tricks to demonstrate them to make them look easier. I call them carnival games. You know how when you go to the carnival, the guy behind the counter shows you just how easy it is to win?
Yeah.
And then you can't?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Aha, okay. So if you say no, and then it's up to the officer to then give you a blood alcohol test or a blood test?
Well, at that point, if you refuse the standardized field sobriety test, often they'll offer you what's called a preliminary breath test. And I'm assuming we're talking about alcohol as opposed to drugs or something
Anything else, right. And
if they offer you the preliminary breath test, that's also voluntary and generally not admissible in court anyway. So I tell everybody, don't do that either.
Really?
Generally voluntary.
Okay.
Now, the good news there is you haven't given a whole lot of evidence against yourself between field sobriety tests and a portable breath test. The bad news is you're probably going to get arrested. You're probably going to find yourself down at the police station where now they're going to ask you for the big one. Now they're going to ask you for the breath test, the official breath test.
Got it. Okay.
This is the one where people worry about licenses getting suspended and what's useful in court. And this is the most common question I get asked. Should I take that breath test? Should I refuse that breath test? And there's no right answer.
Okay.
Other than, at that moment, ask to speak to a lawyer, because they have to let you talk to them.
They have to let you talk once you've been arrested.
Absolutely.
What kind of mistakes have you seen your clients make through all these kind of many steps? I'm sure there's a million.
Saying too much, doing too much, being blatantly dishonest in ways that we know, that are proven later that are dishonest, changing stories. Well, I didn't have anything. Well, actually, I had one. Actually, I had 4. The over-explaining. This is. I'm pretty sure I can talk my way out of this if I can just tell you enough.
Right.
The thing that officers will often say, sort of as a joke amongst themselves, is that although suspects have the right to remain silent, most DUI suspects lack the ability to remain silent.
Yes.
And it's really crucial. Just don't say anything and try to get a hold of somebody like me as quickly as possible so we can protect you.
We can protect you. Well, I am so grateful for your time here. I'm so grateful for everything that you've shared, and I know that people can call you for help. And if they need to, you can always, of course, get in contact with Jonathan and his team at DUI Heroes by just visiting the website on your screen. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, well, nobody's perfect, as we just learned, but we're not always perfect on New Day, and when we're not, the blooper police are actually on patrol, and we've got some real doozies from the past week. You don't want to miss this.
This portion of New Day Northwest is sponsored by DUI Heroes.